is to share and disseminate best practices and strategies for recruiting and training. So we've asked our grant partners to join us today to share some of the cool things they're doing with hopes that maybe you can adapt and adopt those in your program. So if you haven't already, please send to Christina your name and your school so you get full credit for being here today, for attendance. And she and I will both be monitoring the chat box for questions as we go along the way. There should be time at the end, I think, for questions. So send anything that comes up in there, we can get those addressed, okay? All right, so first up here is Kyle and Ryan from Sinclair Community College. So I have their slides here. We can start right away.
Great, thanks, Mark. I think I'm up first. And one of the things that we want to talk about for this first lightning round, Mark, you can go ahead and go to the next slide there, was talking about how to get diverse leadership in information technology. And one of the things that Ryan and I were focusing on was more women in STEM. And I kind of wanted to touch on a few things real quick with this. Is we have a great group in the area that we're in Dayton, Ohio, that's actually a technology nonprofit association that helps out with a lot of leadership opportunities and kind of getting the word out. They also have a kind of like a quarterly magazine that they'll put together and send out with just area information. So this is just local to the Dayton area. They also try to do some things in Cincinnati, but really this is just a Dayton-driven program. But one of the cool things with them, you can go to the next slide, Mark, is Ryan and I have been working with them to try to get some more information in their catalogs that they send out to. They send these out to our students and to area programs just about some of the events that they have going on. And as you can see, we try to be very involved with them. Sinclair is a large sponsor of their programs. But in this, they started a new program called Women for Technology. That is something that we're partnering with them on to try to bring more people into, or more women in the area into technology roles and leadership and these areas. And what's really cool about it, Mark, you can go ahead, go to the next slide, is we're starting to run events with them. So, if you're familiar with Sinclair, this is actually one of our big halls at Sinclair. This picture is from a large event that we hosted. We host the Ohio Information Security Conference along with Technology First here in Ohio. We had to run it online in 2020, but let's see, this was March 11th. I think we actually did this one face.
Yeah, that one was live.
Yeah, we did this one. It was like the last thing we did before we shut down.
Yep.
So this was a picture from the 2020 conference that we just had. But kind of like what I was saying about their involvement, Mark, if you want to go to the next slide, they have this Women for Technology. And what's really cool about that is we actually hosted some of their events. So you can see here, Tuesday, September 10th, we actually hosted a panel of empowering female leaders. And what's really cool about that is some of the ladies that are on this board also hire our students for internship. So we got very involved with these ladies. If you'd like to go to the next slide, a lot of these ladies, including Jacqueline Gamble down in the lower right-hand corner, is a founder for a large cyber defense agency in Dayton. She brings our students into internships for cybersecurity. But what was really cool about this program is we started hosting these at Sinclair so we can invite our students to them. So we could actually bring these in, try to get students involved in this program and actually have our students be a part of this event. Now, I wish I had pictures from this event, but Brandy Burton, one of our people that we had host this with us, oh, sorry, Brandy Mariani, she got married, that helped out with this. She took our pictures from the event and now she's on maternity leave. So I have pictures from the event, but we hosted this in one of our new facilities. So what we did is we brought in very important women in the industry to come in to talk to a lot of our students. And this was very well received. Again, we had it at our campus back when we could have things on our campus. And we had a great event. Mark, if you'd like to go to the next slide. There's just a little bit about Women for Technology in the area. We have an opportunity to work with Technology First in the area. You can see that Technology First and Sinclair have partnered with this Women for Technology program. I just kind of bringing this to light. I actually was speaking at some other community colleges, and they had also mentioned that there are other entities in their area that are like our Technology First. And Ryan and I thought, well, what a quick, easy win this is for us to partner with our local groups that actually does the outreach. They'll help run the events and invite our students to it. So we thought that this was a great way to kind of help encourage more women to go into technology. They also help with some of our hackathons that we get into high schools for more diverse population. Technology First helps out with that. But more importantly, we just wanted to display what we were doing here with Technology First and women in technology. And I think that might be my 5 minutes, Mark.
Yeah, and staying on that slide for just a second, pardon me, I'm fighting off a cold here, so my voice is hopefully will hold out this entire time. But yeah, if you look at that statistic is from our 2019 meeting where they said, you know, hey, in 2020, a little disturbing fact here is that only 26% of the workforce is female. And so that, you know, obviously gives us a lot of room for growth. And if you would go ahead to the next slide, Mark, the kind of looking at our specific data analytics program as opposed to our whole IT program is one thing, but focusing in on just our data analytics. This gives you kind of an overview of where we stand. And the graphic didn't come through real well, but ultimately it's a stacked setup, right? Where you have short-term certificates that can be done within a year or less than a year, and then a one-year certificate, which stacks into a two-year degree. And that's kind of the state of our current operations. Something that you probably can't see there is that those go across disciplines. So in other words, we have data analytics that are part of our geo information systems. We have it in marketing. We have an accounting one on the way. So the idea being is that, you know, data analytics is something that crosses lots of disciplines. So it provides an opportunity for us to kind of work in areas where there might already be a bigger population of women already there that we could then kind of recruit and fold into the IT area. And so that's one thing. And then if you would go to the next slide there, Mark. And this is just kind of a timeline to give you an idea how we got to that previous slide. In 2010, we had a one-year certificate in data analytics, which yielded like a grand total of 10 graduates, I think, over like a 5-year period. It was a failure, to say the least. And part of that was because the math requirements were very stringent. And so in 2015, we had an NSF grant that allowed us to start focusing on big data and particularly going across other disciplines. And so from 2015 to 2018, we worked very hard to change our one-year certificate in CSIT, reduce some of the math requirements and folded those into the 2-year degree, which now exists. The idea being that a person that maybe wants to just get some data analytics schooling, but doesn't necessarily want to get the full-blown 2-year degree, they're not going to have to burden themselves with all the heavy math. So we have short-term certificates, 1 year, and then the 2-year, and kind of the idea being that we can serve all populations. And so in 2018 is when most of that kind of came into play. And then in 2019, we developed a marketing plan, if you would go to the next slide. And the marketing plan originally focused on retooling. In other words, looking for people that are already degree holders, right? They're already in the workforce, maybe working in marketing or something along that line, and they recognize the need to get better at working with data. And so the idea was, hey, this short-term certificate might be a good way for a person that's already got a degree to get a little bit better in data analytics. And that's still part of the program. But then the other side is the second bullet there, where we talk about we're trying to get a grant where we target high school students. And the idea here is to get them in the pipeline to get the 2-year degree right out of high school, so they can get on track to get data analytics and possibly even go for a master's at some point and maybe be a data scientist. I mean, who knows? But that's kind of a track idea to get them started early on. And we have a short-term certificate that has just come online called Data Fundamentals, which is intended to kind of bridge that gap for high school students that are interested but don't really know enough about data and how that works. So the marketing basically is twofold. One is the retooling, and the other is to try to get people in early on. Then I just mentioned here brochures, co-video, social media spots, television spots. Those are, of course, are the ways that we're going to market. This is, of course, in addition to our partnership with Women for IT that we already work with in our local branch. And so anyway, so that's kind of the idea, is that, you know, we're kind of taking a two-tiered approach there. And then if you go to the next slide. And here, this is just kind of an idea to show. The blue columns show our enrollment in just overall CSITs, computer science and information technology. It's roughly an 80-20 ratio, male to female. And this is all of our CSIT programs. And then if you look at the red bars, those represent the proportion that are in our data analytics programs. So the idea here is that we already have a little bit better ratio in the data analytics. This is not the other across disciplines. This is just the IT folks, just our CIS students, our CSIT students. And the numbers aren't very big. As you can see, there's only 66 students represented in those red bars, but the proportion is good. And so we're kind of hoping that if we can continue on our program of marketing and working with Women for IT, then we can continue to grow that and maybe boost that blue as up a little bit for the females as a result of focusing on the data analytics. And if you would go to the next slide there, Mark, this one just simply shows the growth of the data analytics enrollment from about the time that the grant started showing some fruit to now. Again, small numbers, but hopefully we can get our marketing plan in place and do a little bit better job of getting more enrollment. And that next slide, I think, is where we'll talk about that a little bit. So here, you know, we already have the connection with our local group and Technology First, and we started implementing some of the marketing plan. We already have some Facebook videos out there of Paul Hansford. He's our main data analytics guy, but we didn't really get to do the commercials, the ads. And this is just an idea that, you know, in order to try to go the next step, hopefully in the next year or so, we can start putting ads in social media. And this is just an example of one where, you know, you put the message out that, hey, this is a great area. You have the target demographic showing a female involved in this particular case, and then a call to action, of course, which is, you know, hey, this, get them motivated, something that's interesting, you know, it looks like me, I can do this, click the button and get started. So that's kind of the idea. And then, of course, monitor, assess, and revise as time goes on. And that's kind of our strategy specifically for data analytics. And again, this kind of dovetails with the overall goal of improving our CSIT numbers. And I think that's it.
All right, thank you guys both very much for that. So if anyone has any questions, put in the chat box, and we will collect those and answer them at the end or via email after the webinar is over. So moving on from Sinclair, we next have Chris and Elizabeth from Georgia Southern. Let's talk about women technology.
So I'm Chris Codlike.
I'm Elizabeth Rasnick.
And we're at Georgia Southern University over by Savannah in Georgia. Really, the purpose was we were going to talk about recruitment and retention. And so recruitment, we've always been trying to increase our numbers. We're somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 students now. The place where we needed to really work was really on females. So when we brought Elizabeth on, you want to
right? So you would see my grin without the mask, right? But COVID. So we've started a few new programs. One is a student organization called Women in Technology. I mean, it sounds like a lot like the Women for Technology that we just heard about. It's has a headquarter organization in Atlanta, and it puts a lot of industry experts that are women and male allies in support of women in any kind of STEM field. So while the name is Women in Technology, it's across all STEM areas. And the organization has a lot of different events. So on the slide, it's involvement in campus community. They do everything from the Angel Tree, they take donations, they've worked at hackathons and events with other technology and STEM organizations. But it gets students interested across disciplines. So it's not just IT or technology, it's not just CS. And it really builds a sense of community. The students set up tutoring groups, so they help each other out. They will share notes. When somebody's having a hard time, they've actually, in a course, they've created a directory for these are the members who have taken this course before, so they're the ones that can sort of help you. So that built-in support structure really helps with retention, and it also feeds into recruitment. Because we've got students that are helping younger students or senior students. And then do you want to hit enthusiastic faculty?
So the bringing Elizabeth on, I was very interested in bringing more females into the major and growing our major. We had over 50% of our faculty were female at one point, and brought Elizabeth on, and it was only up until that point that really the ball started rolling. And I think it's really getting the right faculty in at the right time, and getting the right enthusiasm inside of the faculty that students can relate back to. And so I don't think it's enough to just be excited about something. You have to have somebody that the students can relate back to.
So the Women's Weekly is an event we hold every week. Of course, COVID has altered how we're doing it, but we have a lab set up on Friday mornings. And for a couple of hours every Friday morning, we have a Keurig, we bring in donuts. And so, again, female students from across STEM disciplines will come in. Sometimes it's just to hang out and talk about difficulty they're running into, not necessarily with assignments, but with relating to other people in their classes, because they're often the only girl in the room. So it gives them a place to talk about that experience, and it gives them sort of a safe zone. So that's what the Women's Weekly is. And then we've had professional women's panels. Those are some of the sponsored talks and events. And then, we can go ahead to retention. The next slide, please.
So hold on the emphasize. So inside of the groups, bringing in all kinds of bringing in speakers that really speak to the leadership that females can have inside of the STEM field. We're very lucky where we're at. We have a lot of very excited CEOs, CIOs that come and speak, but now bringing them in remotely, it has been very successful for us. But retention inside of IT for us has always been a rather large focus. We don't get our students really from incoming freshmen. They transfer in from other places. So you saw inside of our recruitment the idea that we were advertising to the students that are already on campus. Here we're looking to make sure that we don't lose them once they come in.
Right. And one of the ways we do that, the leadership in STEM fields, we have alumni that will come and talk to our students. So part of the retention is that when we're having alumni who graduated within the last year or two come back, some of their younger classmates are still there, and they're seeing the leadership roles these women have been put in for their jobs, and then also in organizations that are supporting women in STEM. So that helps with the retention as well, because our seniors aren't just dropping off the face of the earth when they graduate. They're coming back and talking to our students and helping them pick up new professional skills. They're working with them on like salary negotiation topics. So they talk about all kinds of different topics, and hearing it from someone that they know was recently in exactly their same shoes makes a huge difference.
To answer one of the questions that's coming up at the side of the chat, is your student population mostly residential or commuter? Most of ours are really residential. We're in a very rural part of the state. And so we get half of our students from the Atlanta area, and then they drive 3 hours here and stay. And so we have, and then the other half of our population is really coming from the very rural farming type communities inside of the state. So we have a very odd mix. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know where we were
at. Okay. So we have started both a recruiting and retention effort, in that we have a freshman year seminar, first year seminar, and they can be thematic in nature. So I was the instructor for one where the topic was women in STEM. So along with learning about all of the different resources on campus, you know, and that you would learn in a typical first year seminar class, we also spent time talking about women that came from different areas in STEM, so that we were relating them to the very disciplines and jobs that the students in that class were heading into. And we had discussions about some of the obstacles that they faced, and then how they were able to get past them. And really the big thing about recognizing those stumbling blocks is so that those students in their very first year on, or first semester on campus, recognize that there will be stumbling blocks. You're going to have some difficult things you have to work through, and you might have to invent how you work through it. But other people have done it, other women have done it in this area, and so you can do it too. And the people in this room are going to be the resources that will help you get through that. So that also builds that resilience, right? That they're willing to push through when they hit tough times. Just knowing that it's coming helps a lot, has a huge impact on them. All right, we're good.
Back at you, Mark.
All right, thank you both for that. That was great. So moving right along here, we have David Keithley from UNT. Talk about his best practice here.
So I'm going to talk about several things. Some of these are fairly new, but they've kind of been designed in the mode of trying to recruit and retain various kinds of students, many of them underrepresented. UNT was just recently designated as a Hispanic serving institution. So we have a lot of new students coming in as a result of that. So what we're trying to do is not only attract new majors, but also attract what I've labeled as fellow travelers, people who have the need or an interest in computer science type courses and degrees, but not necessarily as their major. So we'll talk about some of those options. We also have a lot of students who may be looking to make midstream adjustments. A lot of times we have students who start out in like computer engineering, computer science, and realize it's a little more theory than they really want to do. So they move to our IT degree, for example. They want to do things that are a little more applied. Also some that address new topics in the industry. We'll see those in a minute. And then just providing some exploratory opportunities. Okay, next slide. So we have a new ABET accredited degree in cybersecurity. This is just started this fall. So it has some different programming sequences, and it leverages some courses available in other departments. So we kind of have a crossover into things like criminal justice. They do some stuff in like computer forensics and computer crime and things like that. We have some new graduate degrees as well in cybersecurity and AI and machine learning, which then created, of course, an interest in undergraduate students of having programs in that. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And then one of the new things, one of which is in place now, it started in the fall, and one that we're working on are these CS plus X degrees. I actually went to a National Science Foundation workshop, sort of a think tank kind of thing on this. It seems like forever ago, but I think it was only in January. It just seems like it was a long time ago. And it was really interesting to hear what other people were doing with this CS plus X, where the X could be just about anything. So we've actually put one together that's actually on the books now that's a GIS plus CS. We've kind of turned them around because usually when you lead with CS, that scares a lot of people. But if you lead with whatever the other thing is and then add CS on the backside, they're not as scared. So we have a GIS plus CS. It's a collaboration with our geography department, and we're working on a CS plus art program, and then we have interest in others. But at that workshop, there were people combining CS with English and history and political science and things that I never would have even thought of. I didn't think much outside the STEM fields. So that was kind of interesting. So we're investigating other opportunities in that area. But we do have one on the books currently and another one in the way. Okay, next slide. We already have a minor in computer science that's been around for a long time, but we're starting to see more interest in it. But we just added a new minor in cybersecurity because that's certainly a hot area. So that's mostly for our majors, but also quite a few STEM people are interested in doing that minor. It's about a 19-hour minor. Okay, next. Now we get to the good stuff. So this particular part really excites me because for however long we've been on this current grant cycle, on my quarterly report, there's this thing that says stackable certificates, and I've had to write not applicable. And now I actually get to fill in that box with something. Now, this is so new information, it's not even hot off the press. It hasn't made it to press yet. So, but we are adding some certificates. We already had a security CISSP type certificate and a game developer certificate, but now we're starting to do the stackable thing. So I've been trying to get our administration to buy into the way that a lot of the community colleges do it for years, and somebody finally realized it was a good idea. So we're now adding these. So we have a 2-level certificate in computer programming. So the first, I'm still on this slide. 2 courses, 7 hours worth of credit, and then a silver one, which is that one plus 2 more courses. And then we're doing a 3-level certificate in cybersecurity. And these are intended mostly for people not in our majors. So the idea is that the courses they take have some pathways that they can get into them without necessarily having to satisfy all the ABET requirements of 16 hours of lab science and calculus and all that kind of stuff. And we're also in the process of adding ones in AI and machine learning for undergraduates, and also data science, which will be probably the bronze silver type levels that we're talking about here for the other ones. So those are kind of some new things to also bring in those fellow travelers, especially in areas where we may not do a complete CS plus X type program. So I'm pretty excited about those, and you can look forward to seeing something new on my quarterly status reports. Okay, next slide. This one is also kind of personally exciting. So we started this, actually Phil Sweeney, who some of you may have known, who passed away about 3 years ago, kind of started this initiative, and then he bequeathed it to me, is this course called 1010, Discovering Computer Science. So if you are in a high school or do work with high schools, you may be familiar with the AP CS Principles exam and course. And that's essentially what this is, although scaled up for university level. So we don't do all of that. We don't take the test, obviously the AP test and things like that. And this, what we've done with this, we've offered it for about 3 years now. I've been teaching it, but just last year, actually starting in this fall, we got it approved through the Texas Coordinating Board, Higher Education Coordinating Board, as a core class. So it actually satisfies university core requirement. So what that meant is, instead of having 10 or 15 students in this course, this semester I had like 50, because now a bunch of departments who had other technical requirements or computing requirements are now giving this as an option to their students because it double dips. It satisfies their computing requirement. It also satisfies a core area. So that's kind of a cool deal. The next step that we're wanting to do with this is to offer it as a dual credit course, so that we can actually reach out then to high schools and offer this to their students if they don't have the ability to offer it themselves, and a lot don't. So they either don't have the computing resources or otherwise. So we can offer it as a remote or an online asynchronous course. So this is really big. It's actually gotten to the point where instead of offering this course once a year, we're probably going to offer it at least twice a year, either fall, spring, or like spring or fall, summer, or something, because we have a really high demand for it now. So that's kind of neat. It also tends to also be a recruiting mechanism, because I get a lot of students who are early in their college career, freshmen and sophomores, and sometimes after having the chance to experience some computing and some other things, they decide that's what they want to major in, or at least add a minor or something like that. So and I've actually shared with those students some of the things that I've shared with you about the certificates, and so they're very excited about those as well. So I anticipate the initial numbers enrolling in those will be pretty big. And you can see kind of the basic big ideas that we talk about. We actually use Snap as our programming language. And there's some really good material out there from the Beauty and Joy of Computing, which we've had tracks at Working Connections on. So it's kind of based on that, but it's modified a little bit to eliminate some of the AP specific requirements and expectations, and add a little more depth into some of the topic areas. Next slide. So basically what we're trying to do is provide a number of pathways for not only our current students, but potential future students as majors, and to create some options that are less intimidating to those who may be first in family, or those coming from a background where they didn't have the opportunities to do a lot of computing related things in high school, because maybe their high schools didn't have those options, and give them a way to try some things out, kind of dip their toe in the pool, so to speak, and see what they might be able to do with it in the future. And a lot of people realizing that their majors are going to need those computing skills in the future. I think that's it.
Thank you very much for that, David. Appreciate that. That's great. So pressing on here, we have Tara Lewis from here at Collin College, and she's going to talk about her perspective on all this. Tara?
All right. So hi, I'm Tara. This is probably a little bit of a different take, because my background is in higher ed, but on the student service side. So I've worked in academic advising. I started at UT Dallas in their arts and technology area doing advising, and then academic administration. And then I did career coaching and program coordination at UNT. And now I'm here at Collin as a career coach for the DOL Flex Tech Apprenticeship Program. So I'll kind of a little bit on the student support side and looking at it from that aspect. So next slide. All right, so thinking about holistic student support, when we talk about, there's often this idea of working with the whole student. So that involves intentional planning and integration of mission critical student academic and personal supports. And I'll get into those details. So next slide. So we have a thing that we call the student life cycle. This was something that I worked a lot on at UNT at Frisco, and looking at that student life cycle. And then as students progress through this cycle, where do they tend to encounter barriers? What are things that we have to think about? So, you know, recruiting is attracting students. You're engaging them, you're recruiting them, you're getting them to apply, you're getting them admitted. And then they go into orientation and then hopefully get enrolled. And we find a lot of barriers where students get stuck is this area between getting admitted and then getting enrolled and then going to class. And it's called MELT. There's a thing called summer MELT where students get admitted. They might even like enroll and then they just drop off or they don't show up. So how do we keep engaging students at that point? And then when we have them on campus, looking at their engagement on campus, engagement starts in the classroom. So how do we then utilize what faculty are doing in the classroom, and then work to connect that to co-curricular engagements on campus that'll help boost a student's career preparation, civic engagement, and just really enrich their college experience, no matter four-year or community college, so that they stay retained and they persist. So you get those engagement activities, that studentship, and then we have graduation and alumni. And then, as we heard from another school, making that full loop where you're involving alumni with your current students. So next slide. So one of the things to think about is, who are your students? And I'm sure I didn't catch everything here, but thinking about your students, they're first generation. They may be LGBTQIA, so a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual. And that's something to think about too, is when you're looking at women in STEM too, are you including students who are transitioning, who are identifying themselves as female? So that's something to think about as well. Veterans, women, disabled, visual disabilities, and invisible disabilities. Transitioning careers. I have a lot of students I work with that are transitioning their careers. They may be coming back to school to retool, to up their skills. Their parents, their caregivers, some work full-time, or some work part-time. All of these different aspects are who our students are, and a lot of times those things intersect. And students tend, I think, not to be retained for a number of reasons, but sometimes it's because all of these things that intersect don't work well with what's being offered or the support services that they have access to. And I also like to think of students are kind of like an iceberg, right? We have these interactions with them, we see them, but there's a lot of stuff that we aren't aware of that's going on in their lives that may be impacting how they're taking classes. Are they doing well in class? What's going on in their lives? So for instance, I have a student who told me that both of her parents died in the last month, and she was really struggling. So then how can I make sure I'm supporting that student so that they can continue? Next slide. So things to keep in mind, I think, when we're recruiting students, when we're retaining students, helping them to persist, is being aware of our own biases. So being aware of who we are, our stories, and our biases that we have. For instance, I am I guess, third generation college student. My grandmother went to college, even my great grandmother went to college. So I don't know what it's like to be a first generation student. That's something I don't have experience with. So I need to make myself aware of what that means. What is a student's experience if they're first gen? Situational factors, these are all those things that students come in with. All of those things that I listed before are, what is their current situation? What are those factors that affect how they're retained in college? Authenticity, I always try to be really authentic with my students. I think it helps the engagement if they can see me as a person. Thinking about the stereotypes that we have about people, barriers, what are their barriers that they encounter? Imposter syndrome. A lot of students, especially we see this in women in STEM or with other represented populations, is that they come in with imposter syndrome thinking, I don't belong here, I'm not smart enough, I'm not gonna make it, right? So helping them understand what they're experiencing and then helping them to develop self-efficacy to overcome those things. And then things that you can build trust, have early exposure, help build communities. So it can be a learning community, or if you have a residential campus, a living learning community, creating those supportive environments, and then having your team. And then last slide the last slide's more from, this is some student development theory to throw in there, thinking about challenge and support that you're offering, building that and then Vincent Tinso's model for persistence and completion, which is setting high expectations for students, but also giving them support, having frequent opportunities for assessment and feedback of how you're doing and how your programs are doing, involvement, engagement starts in the classroom again, and then having administrative action. What are institutional supports that are going to help these populations of students thrive? And then last slide. And then just more on the academic and career coaching side, because that's been my realm for a lot of the time, is for me seeing the biggest impact was having strong partnerships between academic advising, career coaching or advising, student services, and faculty. So having that relationship I saw benefited students the most. I do what's called intrusive developmental advising or coaching, where I'm bothering my students on a regular basis. I'm checking in with them to see how they're doing academically with their career planning. So making sure that I'm here to help them and support them. And then just creating those connections for students for networking and mentorship, which we've mentioned previously. That makes a huge impact on students, to have somebody you can connect them with. You know, I do that a lot. I have a student who's going into GIS, and I said, oh, hey, I have a friend who's a graduate advisor at UTD for GIS students. She'd be a great resource. Let me connect you. So finding those connection points for students. I mentioned learning communities. And then I always say that faculty are going to have the industry experience. So I don't know really a whole lot about IT. It's not my wheelhouse, but I know about policy, academic policy. I know how to navigate the environment, and I know how to write a resume. So I can help students there. And I want to partner with faculty so that they can provide that mentorship for students.
All right, looks like I'm up next. My name is Jason Mitchell. I'm a professor at Lansing Community College, and I'm going to focus on this talk on retention. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what Tara was talking about. Next slide, please. So at LCC, about 3 years ago, we hired, there was a millage, and with that millage, we were able to create 20 positions at the college in response to, at the time, the president's initiative of 100% success. And so they hired coaches that would work with either proactively or reactively with students that were in jeopardy. And those students, you know, very similar to what Tara was talking about, across the field, you know, might be first generation college students, or, you know, single mothers, or just having a really hard time, you know, trying to navigate the school system. Next slide, please. So this is what they do. They basically the student can either approach the success coach, or usually what normally happens is they're behind in class, and the professor, like maybe the second week, 4 week, 6 week, 8 week alerts. We actually have a button right on our learning management system where we click on it, and then we tell the success coach whether it's an academic or behavior issue, and kind of a little bit of the information. And then it gets sent to basically dispatch, and then the dispatch alerts the success coach, and then the success coach works with the student and tries to identify what's the barrier to their learning, and then has a lot of resources to help them out. So it could be like, here's some examples: study strategies, time management, self-awareness, and then just engaging in a student, showing that we're here to complete, to help you succeed in what you're trying to achieve. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the process, but yeah, it is actually really integrated into our learning management system, which is fantastic. Because from you know, a professor's point of view, if you have 35 to 50 students in a class, I mean, it could be cumbersome, you know, when you don't have 15 showing up and you try to email them yourself, and you know, it's a juggling act. So with this process, we're able to, like I said, within a minute, it takes a minute, we can alert the success team, and they can go out and basically lift the student up and try to figure out what's going on. Maybe they're just, you know, maybe they're not getting enough food in the house, and they can point them and help them obtain services that way. So it's a really good team atmosphere. Next slide, please. As far as the stats go, this is this year. So from August to November 20th of this year, first 3 months of the semester, there was 2,141 early alerts. So keep in mind that we have 20 success coaches, and we have roughly 11,000 students in the college. So we had 2,141 early alerts submitted for 1,457 students. That means some students might have been tagged as not only academic, but maybe behavioral or not showing up to class. And let's take a look at some of the reasons here. Next slide, please. So there's academic reasons and then non-academic reasons. We can see on the left side of this chart, we have 3,343 alerts due to academic reasons. And based on the information they gathered, based on talking with the students, it usually came down to they were missing assignments. And so they would help the students with time management. They would help the students with tutoring, contacting our tutoring resources, or maybe they didn't have the book and therefore couldn't, you know, complete the assignment because they couldn't afford it. Some of it was academic skill building, writing. We have a lot of first generations in our area, so there's a language barrier. And then on the right-hand side, we had 1,084 non-academic reasons. And the highest there was attendance. It could have been that some people just didn't know that they had to show up for the first couple days, couple weeks, or, you know, transitioning to real online classrooms was a big step for a lot of people. So alerting the success coach and them reaching out, maybe they didn't have internet access, right? So at the college, they can rent a laptop and they can get a MiFi device, right? And then next slide. I think we're getting towards the end here. Yeah, and there's just, if you want to know more about our program, we do have a great website out there that explains the whole process, and it's right there. But it really does improve our retention. I don't have the stats from last year, but based on the amount of alerts and who they were alerted, it's something like 85% of the students were able to turn around and succeed. So it's a well-vetted program. I mean, it's been up for about 3 years. They're still, you know, trying to figure out some of the processes, but right now, from my point of view, I see it improve the students' you know, attendance and grade. So I'm excited about that. For the software, our learning management is D2L. And then it's the alert system is a built homebrewed system. But that's it. Thank you very much.
I'm Rajiv Malkan. I'm with the Lone Star College Montgomery campus. We're going to focus more on the recruiting aspect today rather than the retention in the next 5 minutes we have here. Okay, next slide. What we have a huge, a huge van, where inside this van, we got about 12 computers set up. And we use this van to recruit on all the different events we go through. So this is during the 4th of July parade last year. Obviously, we didn't have it this year. So just to show you what we do. So inside this van, we have what we call the computer set up on a Wi-Fi. And then when if somebody comes and asks some questions or things like that, and I'll be showing a couple of new slides where we can literally answer most of the questions right there. And if students wants to enroll right there, we take the application on the spot so that we don't lose any of the students. Next slide. So this is all the parade, just to show you, we do different events in the community, and we always have this van as one of the most recruiting. And we have people who can walk around this, obviously this inside the van, we got all the goodies to give away and things like that. We have flyers and everything, which we pass on to the people who are watching it. This has been very, very successful. We take this van at the football games in the fall, and it's been very, very successful. We park it outside the stadium, and we also have a small booth. We have it there, and inside this van, we have at least one person from the admission office who is knowledgeable about finance, because we get a lot of financial aid questions. So we have one person who is a little bit knowledgeable about how the FAFSA works and other things works. And I normally go there and all the program people go there. So we just take a rotation and try to promote our programs at all these sites. And we also do, what happened at every game, we hand out the towels of that particular, we say Lone Star College towel, but the color is of the team which is playing at the stadium. So that way people rally those towels and things like that. And we're marketing, what do you call event up there. And most of the parents are there. So we also have a lot of dual credit questions. We got a lot of, so people come into the tent, and then we just take them into this van, and we show them the computer, and we give them information right there. So I'll show you some of the things inside the van and a couple of things happening. Okay, next slide. All right, here you go. So these are the students out there. And we also give them this, our logo, it's a Mavericks. So we got the horseshoe, and that's the color of the team that at that place at that time. So we give them different of these gadgets where it says Lone Star College. So that will be a marking that way. Okay, one more. Okay, then we obviously right there to promote the dual credit, we have this on credit while still in high school. So we have a lot of articulation agreement with the high school. So we promote that, hey, while you're in high school. And so when a parent sees this, oh, they can take a college class while in high school? And we say, sure, we do. And then we have a handout where we shows them which courses we've articulated for the 2+2 and a dual credit with this high school that day. So we'll have a different flyer with each campuses where we are going. Okay, it'd be very, very successful to promote some of our programs right there. One way, okay, one more. Okay, there you go. This is just to show you where we park. We park outside the stadium right there. And normally, especially when you have a big arch rivals games, like here in the Woodlands High School and the College Park Place, we have tons of people at that point. We know that we'll get a lot of questions. So we have a lot of faculty and a lot of support staff, more people at that location than at some other smaller colleges. And what we have done, I think, within the county at this, what do you call it, the Wood Forest Bank now, the 4 campuses are now all playing at the same stadium now, so that to save the cost of everybody not building their own stadium. Okay, next slide. Okay, here you go. So we set up a booth if it's the afternoon place. So we go a little bit earlier, and we set up the booth out there. You know, I talk to lots of people out there. As I said, a lot of people come, and I start asking questions. We have a mascot over there, and we have a lot of giveaways at that point. Okay. Next slide. Okay, here you go. That's inside the van out there. where people can come and start questions and we help them out. They fill out the forms, they fill out the application. Some of them want to know how the FAFSA works and things like. We also do conduct like a 30-minute session, for people who really want, like, hey, how to fill up the FAFSA forms and things like that, while the games are going on, because everybody's not interested in watching the games. And some of them will say, okay, so we'll say from 6 to 6:30, if you have a financial aid question, come on down and we'll show you hands-on what things are going to look like. Next slide. There you go. We got student aid. These are the towels I was talking about. We give them in different colors. Okay, that date was this was a Conroe High School. They have a black is the color. So we make the towels in black color and we distribute to all the students over there. Next slide. And at halftime, we throw towels and things like that. It's a lot of fun. So we had to regroup this year, and because of the limitations with the COVID and where we can go. So what we started, in a very, very successful, we call Open House Live. We started there from about June. And what we tried to do is, this was where we ever, first in June, we started like a, what do you call, like a 6 p.m. To 6 to 7. We had different programs. Like we have workforce program one day. We all advertised about 2-3 weeks ago to all the students and everything. And now, since we didn't have too many people initially, so we also started what we call on demand. So me and a couple of the faculties, if the advisors has a question, because now a lot of things are going live and they're a chat session, and they have a question on the computer information system, then we immediately, if they will pick me or whatever, and then we can go ahead and answer the question live for that particular parent or student who has some questions on all of this. But this is just to show you how we have some presentations, and most of the questions are, hey, what kind of classes you're offering, what is programming classes you're offering, and things like that. And we have lots of what do you call people now, because of the reskilling. A lot of people are getting laid off and things like that. They want to know, hey, what else do you do? And where do I get started? I've never done computer before. So we start to show them, hey, come to one of these fundamental classes and you can start doing what we offer. There you go. Then we just tell them what else we need depending on what are the classes we offer. Okay. All right. That was a quick 5 minutes. Yeah, let me know if you got any questions, and then email me, and I can forward you some of the handouts we've created and things like that.
All right, everyone. I'm going to put a survey in the chat box. If you could please complete the survey for today. We want to thank all of our presenters, and that's it. Please make sure that you complete the survey for us. The link is in the chat. Have a great day.